Yeah. This app where you can talk over the video too, so that's handy.
Pull your hat down, make sure your shirt is tight. Horses kind of snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving some burning light.
Howdy there. Burnin daylight.
In the
Welcome to Burnin Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, welcome there, daylight burners. I realized I was about out of coffee and I had no water, so I had to. Not the best entrance I've ever made, but hey, that'll work. Kate Bowen's back with us from the great state of Tennessee. Yankees making their way down south and doing a little homesteading. How the hell you been?
Good. It's good to be back and great to catch up with you. It's been a while.
It has. Yeah, how everybody's alive and well, healthy, and just trying to get shit done before winter, or what?
Yeah, luckily here winter comes a little bit later than it did in Vermont, and we've just been busy. We got down here in late March when we sold our farm in Vermont, and we headed down here. The boys had actually visited here a couple times looking for property, but I had never been. So that last week of packing up all our shit in Vermont and loading the truck, and then it took us a couple days to get down here. We had a lot of truck issues with our caravan of crap coming down here, but we made it, and we jumped right into being full-time campers. So that's been interesting. That's a whole another way of living, going from having land to living right on top of people. But luckily we came down here and there was a property we had seen on Zillow that appealed to us. And we contacted the awesome realtor we've been working with at Whitetail Properties, and which I highly recommend. We're looking for country properties and land. And we found this property pretty close to the city, but still some land that we could afford. And we put an offer in as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, Mark had to do a short deployment. So I had to sign all the paperwork myself, which was a little nerve-wracking. But we jumped right into clearing some land as soon as he got back. And we've had a lot of distractions along the way. We've had some surgeries this summer and a lot of equipment malfunctions, but we're moving ahead, moving forward. It's baby steps, but we'll get there.
It's funny. There's one thing you can always count on with equipment is that it will break. It will break, and it'll usually cost a lot of money to fix it.
Yeah, and unfortunately with our budget, we basically sold off a lot of the farming equipment we had, just about everything. And so, we arrived here without a tractor or anything. So we were scouring Facebook Marketplace for stuff and driving all over the Southeast looking for equipment. And, sometimes you get good stuff, but you got to learn it, work out the bugs. And so far, everything has needed a lot of repairs. The thing that's just killing us right now is we have a Freightliner, and it's too complicated. I mean, it's not that new, but everything is still electronic and requires a lot of money to repair those things. But once we have it fixed, it'll be good to go. So rebuilding the fleet. Yeah.
Well, and that takes a lot of money to move all that shit from Vermont to Tennessee. That's when you're moving big equipment like that, man, that's Yeah, that ain't cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, are you
Yeah, and we definitely didn't line it up well with the fuel prices.
oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys picked almost the worst possible time to start moving. I guess you could have moved. But when did you guys head down there? I think we got frozen.
So
Oh, there we are.
as soon as our house.
Yeah, we're good now. You're back. You're back.
Oh god.
Maybe not.
Yeah, so we sold our place and literally got in the trucks and left. So we left as soon as possible.
And what month or when exactly was that?
It was the last week in March.
Oh yeah, so right at the almost at the peak of shitty fuel prices, like pretty dang close.
Yeah.
But hey, fuel prices have been coming down. Greatest economic recovery in history, Jack. So many jobs.
What was that?
I said, don't worry about it. It was the greatest economic recovery in history. So many jobs. It was worth it. Plus, we're beating Russia or something.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, do you feel like you guys are like full on Southerners now, or are you still a little bit of a duck out of water?
We're still a duck out of water. It's culturally very different, but I think that a lot of that is just because we moved to much more of a city than we're used to. I mean,
yeah,
we're not used to having that many people around and that many options. But I do think a lot of the Southern Appalachian lifestyle is pretty similar to where we were because we were just at the northern part of the Appalachian range. So a lot of, the plants, topography, unpredictable weather changes, all those things are all pretty standard for us. So, and luckily, my husband went to college in Florida and lived down there for a little while. And my grandma's from the South, so we've had a little bit of sprinkling of some Southern traditions in our lives. So that's definitely helped. But no, it's just great to be around really friendly, kind, nice people again. People have much better boundaries here and much more respectful of private property and just the Constitution in general. So that's nice. And actually, the area that we moved to, funny enough, we didn't know this, but it's actually probably a little bit over, but statistically it's 25% Mexicans, and I don't think it's mostly like Mexicans, not we had a lot of Central American people who came up for the dairy industry in New England, but this is more like Mexican folks. And there's a lot of Mexican restaurants, and it's just kind of a funny random I don't know what brought that many people here, but so that's kind of neat. But so it's a fairly diverse place and a lot of people. So there's a lot of markets for local sort of farm to table stuff.
Nice. That's awesome. I have drove through Tennessee, but that's about it. Like I hit the eastern border with North Carolina when it was about 3:00 in the morning. So I didn't see much of anything until we got to Memphis, essentially. And I did pull a big trailer through Memphis at rush hour, and that was a little nerve-wracking. But yeah, that's about all I know about Tennessee. I think there's some few people that listen from that area, but I don't know. I hated to see you guys have to move Vermont. That sucks. Especially when you got real deep roots there. But at some point, things just become unsalvageable, and you just gotta pull up and head out. It sucks, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and life is really short, and we've had a lot of negative feedback about moving. That we've abandoned people, and if everybody moves, it won't change. But the last 3-4 years, really 4 or 5 years, I was there. I worked really hard to shape. I was going to the state house a lot to shape legislation to be pro ag and pro forestry. I worked really hard on a bunch of logging bills. I, joined a lot of boards like Farm Bureau. I considered running for office, and did speeches places, and did the most advocacy that I could do. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, I don't mind being the first person to stand up in a crowd and William Wallace it, but other people have to stand up too at some point. No one's going to just do it all for you. You're not going to have one person who's just going to sacrifice everything for you. And you can sit back and eat Cheetos and be a pajama person and not even vote. And that is where I really, unfortunately, see Vermont is you got a few really agitated people, and very few people are willing to step up financially or energetically to support them. And it takes money in politics. It takes a lot of money when you don't have any. And you don't have people to help you buy yard signs and stuff. How are you going to compete with these, progressives who have super PACs and are getting money from, cryptocurrency people who support the LGBTQ agenda in some Caribbean island? That's what's funding Vermont politics. And at some point, you don't want to be on the ship of the Titanic just distracted by the music. You gotta jump ship with your family.
Hey, you're forgetting that LGBTQ friendly Caribbean people are the backbone of America.
That's true.
They are the backbone.
It is true. So yeah, I feel I'm sorry that we had to leave, but I did feel like I did my best, and if anything changes, that's the good thing about living in a country like this. You can always move again. You could always move back if things got remarkably better and people impressed you and gained your trust again. But I didn't see it, and it just takes people. To have a little bit of wherewithal to start attending meetings and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of power people can have with their voices. If it's just 3 or 4 people going to a select board meeting or, whatever your municipal board meeting is. Even if you don't say anything, you just introduce yourself to those people who are supposed to represent you. That's a forceful stance compared to doing nothing. So, I would say I'm sort of burned out on politics. I don't really see a very good path forward at the moment. But I also, I don't know. Maybe things will change. I love people when they say there's going to be, a red wave and all that, but I don't trust that there won't be some funny business again. And and then what? People aren't going to do anything. So I don't know, but it makes me more excited to grow more food, get more cows, get more chickens. I'm excited for that.
Well, I think that's the best case scenario is you just go provide enough for yourself where you don't have to worry about that other shit. Me and Aaron have talked several times where just the state of politics, almost makes me want to run for office. Almost. But then I don't like I've witnessed that firsthand, seeing my dad age significantly over 8 years and not be able to get a whole hell of a lot accomplished. And that was back when Colorado was still relatively reasonable. And I think you have to go far more local and like just be engaged in your local community and make sure shit doesn't go awry there, because once it does, that's when stuff really gets crazy. All this national politics stuff doesn't mean much for a while. Like it takes, it's a big, slow moving institution until they decide they want to crack down on you. Then they can move pretty fucking fast. But yeah, so like all this shit. I mean, it was like I said back in March of 2022 when they were talking about the first stimulus bill. I said, well, this is, and remember, Donald Trump was like was bragging about how big it was. It was the biggest bill in history. And well, okay, that's fine, but he also did a major tax cut earlier, so and I'm fine with that. I don't like taxes, but if you're going to spend a bunch of money, you have to have the money somewhere. And what they did, they just printed it. And so all that it took, well, till about March of 2022 for all that inflation to really trickle down and hit. And meanwhile, like they've got everybody bitching at each other about the student loan deal and ignore all the billions of dollars that got wasted on the PPP deal, like where you had the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, Kanye, Jay-Z, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Pelosi's, I'm sure they all took PPP loans, which were forgiven. But yet they, and then particularly on the conservative side, they got the gall to come out and bitch about some student loans being forgiven, which I'm not saying is a great idea. That's not at all. But it's a little ploy that they use because the Democrats were getting their asses handed to them until this Roe v. Wade deal came down. And now it's a whole new ballgame. Like you said, it looked like it was going to be red tsunami. And now, despite of having everything handed to them, the Republicans have still figured out a way to almost fuck it up. And it's wild. And I don't know. I think at some point people will have to become reasonable but I keep waiting for that to happen and it just hasn't. So I don't know. I'm going to take care of the family and make sure that I'm insulated as much as I can from the outside bullshit.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. And I think just my little small foray into politics I was really surprised, I guess, coming from someone who was very left of center growing up. And I was always hearing about, the Koch brothers and all this stuff. I imagined the conservative, GOP was very organized and structured. And I just still can't believe the dysfunction and how, the national GOP doesn't really have any governing body in the state GOPs. I mean, it is the biggest cluster you've ever seen. It's feuds between people that have been intergenerational. And I mean, it's the biggest mess ever. So I also have, some, empathy for politicians that are trying to deal with that. I mean, it's definitely why there's so much corruption. And even on the local level.
Well, even on the third party, I got to witness some of the recent stuff with the Libertarian Party, which that party essentially got taken over by Ron Paul type people. And there was so many coup attempts throughout, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. I think Vermont was another one where like all these like lefty progressive libertarians, which were kind of what ran the party. I mean, they're the people that gave you Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, and then whatever the fuck her name was that this last time. They were in control of these parties, and then they got their asses kicked in the internal elections, and so they just like split off and started a new party and like took all the funding and all the data, like the email list and everything with them, and like it was like some straight up coup type stuff. and even at the at the national convention there was a bunch of drama that went down, and but they just slowly steadily lost everything, and and they kind of purged themselves too. So I don't know, there's like the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire just got in trouble yesterday or the day before, whenever it was on the anniversary of John McCain's passing. They posted a picture of Meghan McCain crying, and it just said "Happy Holidays," and pretty brutal. Can't say I'm 100% in favor of it coming from a state party. But also I'm not that mad about it. It's John McCain was a monster, so I guess I don't have too much of an issue, but you can tell it's a marked difference in the messaging and whatnot. So but just watching that, there's politics is just ugly, just all the way around. It's fucking ugly, and more and more I like talking about it, but I don't care to get involved in it, and it's a dangerous proposition for the future,
Yeah, for sure. And I was, changing gears slightly, I have been appalled at the lack of acknowledgement about the Afghanistan debacle. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's been, I guess, my own self, it's been challenging over the past couple of years to have someone in, my husband in the National Guard for me, just when I would be so upset if he had died in Afghanistan with that airport disaster and there was no acknowledgement at all about it. I mean,
yeah,
I can't believe the Biden administration is still spinning that as something good.
Well, they took out that dude later on, and his family, and so that made up for it, right? I mean, he had nothing to do with the bombing at all. Actually, he seemed like he was kind of a good guy. But hey, we took him out and his family. Okay, that should make you feel better. Yeah, I don't know. It's
eye for an eye.
Yeah, that whole deal was crazy. Yeah, because we were in Idaho last year at a music festival when that all. Like when Kabul fell, and then like shortly after, it was a couple weeks later when the Marines were bombed there. And I was talking with Jeremiah Wilbur, who is hosting this ranch rodeo I'm going to help announce. And so it's just funny how that it was the same confluence of events. It seemed like we went up to Idaho like right after they raided Mar-a-Lago, and then you had all these posts like the 1 year anniversary of all this shit in Afghanistan, and you're just like, we have not moved on very far in a year. Like a lot of shit has happened, but we're in the same damn place we were a year ago. Yeah, I don't know. It's
hopefully we're moving toward a better place.
I like to think so. I think that's about the only thing you can just keep hoping that it's try to make things a little bit better. That's about all you can do, and let the chips fall where they lay, but try to make sure you got a good spot for them to land. I guess I don't know. It's that's just I don't know. I don't know what else you do, but it can be pretty discouraging. But I love seeing all the progress you guys have made. I'm sure it's been infuriating at times, but you guys, I was telling my wife how you guys had to clear a whole bunch of trees and stuff, and she's like, "Well, that's just dumb. Why don't you move where there's no trees?" And that's what we did. But there's also no water either, so it's a trade-off, really.
It is a trade-off. Yeah, I mean, for us, we're definitely, we're wood people, so it's good. We have a sawmill, and Mark's logged a lot, so it works out good for us. We see, some financial and purposeful use in timber. So yeah, the land we got, I mean, not that much. It's just about 25 acres. And it's a crazy parcel because in order for it to be in our budget, it means it has to be sort of messed up. So it's right alongside of a really major interstate. And in order to get to it, there was no access. There's no driveway or anything. So we've literally had to kind of, inchworm our way up to the building site. So it's got a lot of timber on it that's all covered in poison ivy. We don't have any, electricity or water there. So it's been really hot too. And, being of Northern European stock, we are not great in the heat. So it's been a lot of close to heat exhaustion days, but it's been good. We're making progress. We got the building site cleared. We've been milling up some lumber and timbers. We'll get on that more soon, but putting up some firewood right now, and we're plugging along.
I keep waiting for you to show up on your Instagram stories wearing a bonnet and like an old prairie wives dress, because I think there was a reason for that. It wasn't so much the look of the time. It was just like, we have got to shade ourselves from all the sun possible because we are translucent.
Seriously. Yeah, I've thought about that. And, there's this whole like cottage core homesteading thing going on Instagram, and all these women wear like linen dresses and stuff. And I've actually looked on Etsy for them, but I haven't made any purchases. I'm more of a t-shirt and jeans kind of person, but the bonnet isn't really a bad idea. Thank goodness we have baseball hats, but it's the humidity here is pretty strong. But it's going to be nice in October and November.
Yeah, that wintertime will be, or I guess like early winter will probably be good. I imagine it rains a lot there in the winter too, though, huh?
Here all the time. We're actually we've had a dry week, thank goodness, but I mean, we get storms where it's like just drops 4 inches of rain. I mean, we've had a lot of drainage issues too at our property. The bottom of it's kind of a bowl. Hopefully not a sinkhole. It's just a bowl. Dealing with anticipating as we build a lot of flooding is really important. We don't have like the quintessential Tennessee Creek or anything like that. We don't have any flowing water on our property. But the way the compacted clay soils just
just runs off.
There's a lot of water here.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna build a cistern or anything like that?
Yeah, funny. It actually wasn't that long ago that they just passed legislation that you could collect your rainwater. I didn't know that would even have been illegal. But yeah, we're planning on doing that. One of the ridiculous large things, basically every member of the family brought something with them that was highly impractical, kind of like going across the prairie with your, piano or wood stove or something. Mark brought with him these giant plastic totes. They're from a water storage thing in Vermont, and so he brought a few of them, like 4 of them. they're quite large, and we're going to use those for some rainwater collection. But yeah, trying to anticipate the first house we're going to build on the land is a barn dominium, sort of a house.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll have a big garage shop area, and then we're probably, I don't know what it'll be, but probably build a timber frame or log cabin for us. So we're kind of building the barn dough for our son. He works really hard, ridiculous hours for us. So we'll live in it for a year or two with him while we build the cabin. But hopefully the barn dominium will go up a lot quicker than the house will build, which will be kind of a historical reproduction.
Nice. That'll be cool. How old's your kid nowadays?
He's going to be 17 in October, so he's getting there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as I say, that's he looks like he's growing up quite a bit, and yeah, it's you guys got a hell of a project underway. That's but I don't know. Seems like you guys are doing good though. That's seems like a way better situation.
Yeah, we're pushing through, and I mean that's all you can do is you just got to embrace the suck and keep going. Because if you stop and add up all the transgressions and the shit that's gone on, it's pretty overwhelming. But I think there is just a sense of huge relief to be on it really is the other side of the Iron Curtain. And getting away from all of that commie stuff made us realize how bad it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a more drastic change of an environment, you know, from Vermont to Tennessee. I mean, that'd be about like, I mean, that's probably more drastic than moving from California to Texas, you know. At least there's more Californians in Texas, so it's I don't know, that's a big culture change there.
True. Yeah, and that's sort of similar.
Yeah.
And luckily a lot of it though is kind of like the way Vermont was 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, for like the rural people here. I mean, this area of Tennessee is pretty liberal. Knoxville is a pretty left-leaning city, but you have much more balance. You know, the mayor is a wrestler, a former wrestler guy.
Oh, nice.
So you have some pretty
Glenn Jacob
leadership, so that's good. Yeah.
Kane. Yeah, Kane from the WWE. He's a hardcore libertarian. Yeah. He seems like a really good mayor. Yeah, I forgot he was mayor down there. Yeah, that's I've listened to him speak a couple times. He's pretty sharp. And yeah, it's funny. He's like the new Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he'll be down in Mexico. Yeah. That's Jesse Ventura. Huh. Well, he's still down in Mexico, isn't he?
I have no idea.
Last I heard, and that's been a while. Yeah, I heard he was down in Mexico, or I knew he was for a while, but I don't know. I don't know. Might have to. Maybe that'll be an episode. What happened to Jesse Ventura? He was. What was he? Governor of Minnesota.
I think so.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, Minnesota's changed.
Yeah, it's also funny to see how this mass migration that happened over COVID, how it's playing out now. Like, I don't think there was that many people that moved back to California or New York, but I know there were a few. But like we're starting to see all the after effects where like you know, there was so many people moving from like New York and Illinois and California to these more conservative or more rural type state. They didn't, not necessarily rural, but they moved to more conservative leaning states. Even Nevada, which is it's about as swing as it gets, but it's only because of Vegas. Like you get outside of the Vegas area and Reno too. Reno's getting pretty bad, but like just between those two cities, that's like 2/3 of the population right there. And the rest of Nevada is like hardcore conservative or libertarian. You know, like we've got I can't remember if Washoe County Sheriff signed on to the Second Amendment sanctuary deal, but I know every other rural county in Nevada is now Second Amendment sanctuary county. So like we got like the posse comitatus deal theory is alive and well in the West. So that's a good thing. So we try to make sure that we have good sheriffs out here. And the guy that's running for governor, he's the Clark County sheriff, but people may remember him. He's the guy that was in charge during the Bunkerville Bundy standoff. And he's essentially the one that went up to the BLM agent and said, "Hey, we're letting the cattle out because otherwise people are really going to get hurt here." And so Lombardo was the guy that basically, whether he wanted to or not, he was forced to assert his jurisdictional authority over that situation. And that's how the Bundys got their cattle back, was because Lombardo was like, "Hey, these cows aren't worth people dying." So like it was a big win for kind of constitutional leaning people. And so I don't know how good of a sheriff he'll be, or I mean a governor, but he'll dang sure be better than what we got right now. And so, but it goes to show like a good sheriff can do a lot. I mean, the sheriff's a pretty powerful position, and we got some good ones out here, you know. And like the West is still very much the hard part about, you know, people that think like us is we most of the time just want to be left the fuck alone. So that means we don't engage in stuff until things are already too bad. So it's one of the downfalls of being a, you know, individual liberty guy, because you tend not to involve yourself in the matters of others.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm very relieved that it seems like our neighbors at this new spot seem, you know, very respectful and sort of in a similar boat of just kind of wanting to be left alone. You know, friendly and there, you know, we had some coyotes running through the property, and, you know, they texted us, and we actually had some drug dealers running through near our land, and, you know, they texted us to make sure we were, I like that, kind of checking in on each other, but otherwise, you know, leave each other alone. You know, if somebody's playing the music loud or running some kind of equipment, it doesn't really matter. It's just temporary. You know, let it be and let it lie. And long-term relations are better to keep positive. So
it's kind of that
I'm definitely looking forward to being able to set up shop there. I'm not sure if I would make it in a FEMA camp. I feel like living in the camper has been a little bit like a FEMA camp training ground to have, you know, people live 8 feet away from you, and I don't really care for it that much. So,
well, it's not a Hooverville, but it's not quite a refugee camp, but it's not far from it, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's amazing how many people are here in campgrounds because they're escaping socialism. I mean, I would say it's at least half. You know, you got half the people who have sold their houses because the market was so strong and they can't afford to buy anything else. But then the rest of the people are all from all over blue states who have gotten away. A lot of them might have been, you know, sort of liberal, but they just woke up with all the health freedom stuff. Like they didn't want to get a jab, and they were forced to because they're. But yeah, I would say at least how I feel Eastern Tennessee is, and probably similar in some places in Texas, is it has that gold rush feeling because so many people are pouring in and really disrupting, traffic and everything with the economy and just the way everything works. But I would think that that's slowing down. I mean, I would assume with the interest hike and all that, I would assume it's slowing down.
I would think so. Hey, can you hold on just a second? I gotta go drain some coffee.
Sure.
All right, we're back. Yeah, we have that kind of the same feel around here on a smaller scale, just being, it's a just way more rural area, and it's this part of the county is zoned specifically for agriculture, so it makes it a lot harder to subdivide it down lower than like 2-acre parcels. So that's nice because even though we're technically living in town, it's still got an out of town feel to it. But on the road I live on, there's been 4 new houses break ground in the last year. So it's like it's getting crowded here even, and it's not nothing like like where you go to the Vegas or something, and like so many Californians moving to Vegas, and it's just it's always the old deal. It's how they destroyed California. It's how they destroyed Colorado and Washington and Oregon. Is people leave these super liberal places to get away from the tax policies and all the the just government into everything in your life, and then they move somewhere where they don't have all those policies, and then they just bring them with them. And it's like an endless cycle, it seems like. But I don't know. There's
and then
go ahead.
On the flip side, I do think that a lot of people in these conservative, Christian areas have been really asleep at the wheel. Like here, they actually had a drag show at a family-friendly event, and the person who publicized that it was happening was actually a vlogger guy from California. And I mean, I do think that's one of the things that we do bring with us, is that we have a much broader awareness of how leftist Marxism infiltrates communities. And I think that, a lot of times people sit back and they try to do this really like neighborly, soft-spoken thing of, it won't happen here, or they're just numb to it actually coming here. They just have an assumption that because this is a red state, it won't change. And I mean, there are groups actively trying to turn Tennessee blue. And if you look at any of the major, like even the mayor of Knoxville, if you look at the comments, the people commenting are keyboard warriors who are leftists. And they might not even be from Tennessee, but people are funding this place to try to turn it. And it'll be interesting to see if, some of those hardcore Californians and people from New York State and stuff actually can try to protect it. Because I do think, at least with us, I wouldn't run for office here. I wouldn't, I'm not trying to change it, but I sure as hell, I'm going to warn them when I see warning signs of stuff coming down the pike, because it doesn't take long to turn a state to shit.
No, it really don't. Yeah, it's I do think that the conservatives are doing a little better job at exposing some of this stuff. But they still have that very like lame type of approach to it, where it's very much like an old Southern Baptist preacher trying to explain to bunch of inner city teenagers how to be cool and or how how underage sex is not good. It's like it has that kind of feel to it, where it's just like, you're not wrong, but you're not connecting with anybody either. So I don't know. There's
and conservatives. Conservatives are not using social media well.
Right, and by definition, I guess, conservatives are also like not hip. Like they're they're trying to conserve the old ways, so they're not very up to date on like the new wave of things. So that and then it's just, so when they do like push back against this like blatantly just sick stuff that they're pushing on particularly like the trans stuff, like the conservatives are not at all wrong on it. They just also have no idea how to convey that message. So
yeah, it's
I don't know.
True.
Yeah, it's or at least not in a way that's gonna connect with the younger people that they have to. I mean, the conservative movement's always been ancient, like, because the older you get, the more conservative you are, and so that, I mean, that's why the left wings have always had a kind of a stranglehold on the young folks. And it seems like the conservatives are doing a little better job at it now, but I forget who it was. I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were talking about how also the conservatives are not anti, but like they don't pay hardly any attention to the arts, and so that's like you don't have hardly any conservative musicians outside of country music, and actors same way. Like there's more and more, but there's still, like, if you want to get a big spot in Hollywood, like you've got to kind of toe the line, and then conservatives have always kind of almost dismissed the arts unless you were playing in church or something, and that's a mistake as well, because that's why all art is like left wing nowadays. And I don't know. So there's I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish the liberals got back to being liberal instead of being insane people. Like I kind of like liberals because they bring up some good points. I don't necessarily agree with their solutions, but like you look at Bernie Sanders, that guy is pretty much right on the problem. Like he can diagnose a problem pretty good. His solutions are fucking insane, but he has his finger on what the problem is. And I wish there was more of that. But like we just have, like I spend way more time criticizing the conservatives because it kind of goes without saying that the left wingers are fucking insane. So I just like I wish there was more people like Tulsi Gabbard or just some voice of reason within that stuff. Like Joe Biden used to kind of halfway be a voice of reason in the party, but like Jesus, I mean it's I don't know, that whole deal is just insane. Like that they're I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean they they still have a pretty strong hold on propaganda, but they're losing a lot of that grip. And so they're just becoming more and more authoritarian with their, trying to shut down speech. And yeah, I don't know. It seems like we're shaping up for something not good. And I think rural Nevada is a good place to be when shit hits the fan. Cause I'm quite a ways from everybody.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, as we sort of design this farmstead, I mean, we've been in such chaos mode. We haven't really talked about really what we're doing. We're just sort of keep going. But I am wondering if, as we choose animals and different things to do, like, I am thinking more towards self-sustainability than I ever have before. I mean, like, for instance, with our egg layers, we get new ones every year, and I always just order them from the hatchery. I have that expectation that when I place an order, they're going to arrive via the mail. But I'm not so sure, given the state of, the postal service and all these different things, if I want to do that. So this was the first time I've ever considered getting an incubator. I'm thinking about a breed of laying hens that's, broody, and I can hatch my own chicks each spring. And maybe even provide some for someone else. Although I'm sure you need some kind of permit for that, some license and fee you have to pay. But yeah, and thinking about what kind of cattle breed we want, what works best for if we can't find a processor and we have to do it ourselves, size wise. I don't know. It's just a lot of things that I've never really had to weigh because I assumed civilization was going to be there still.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. I know. So they're pushing this bill through. I don't know if it's in the House or the Senate. I would imagine it's being discussed in the Senate, but they're wanting to allow sale barns to purchase small processing facilities. Which I think is a good idea in theory, but I'd have to see like how the bill is laid out and whatnot. But I can also see these big packers also just coming in and buying up a bunch of sale barns too. So I don't know how exactly that's supposed to work, but it's there is a concerted push to like open up like the small farm to table type stuff direct to consumer. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good way to maybe connect with the more liberal audience, and realize that, you can convey the message to them that like, hey, we're not out to get you. We're just trying to raise good beef or whatever. And the direct to consumer is a great way to do that, because the people the more liberal they are, the more likely they're going to want organic, or at least know about their food and know that it was taken care of. The animals are taken care of like they were supposed to. So I mean that's the best thing about the direct to consumer deal, is it opens up the line of communication with the consumer, and then puts them more in touch with their food, which is something that's been severely lacking over the past like 50 years in the US. So I overall, like I said, I'd have to look way more into it, but I think it's probably a good idea, but probably also a chance that it gets co-opted by the packing industry too. So it's, who knows? But I think the more and more you see these type of movements pop up, that's better. That's better than not. So hard to digest all that through the bullshit of your average everyday life. But it's there are some glimmers of hope in there, here and there. So I think one thing that Trump did really well was kind of reconnect with the union worker. particularly in the Rust Belt, and I think that's something that maybe the cattle industry, or that particularly like the producers and like those producer associations, like need to maybe reach out a hand to the packing workers, like not the companies themselves, but like the frontline workers, which that always, in the conservative realm, you're pretty anti-union for the most part, because they got so just infected with the Marxists. But there's some real power in organized labor. Like there's some, I mean, we can see how powerful these labor organizations can be, and there maybe needs to be some sort of handshake agreement where like the cattle workers support a strike by the meat workers, with the caveat that they push for more negotiated cash trade from the packers. Like I don't know how exactly that would work, but if there was ever a time to reach out to some union type workers, I think that would be a good time, because those guys got abused pretty good during the pandemic as well. They found out, those packers found out that they could operate almost at full capacity, even being down a plant, and seeing a very, very little downturn in their production. They just went, during COVID, they just went balls out, and we can say whether it was for altruistic reasons or not, because we still had to feed a country. But when you look at the profit margins that they made, I mean, they just gouged people over the pandemic, just like every other corporation did. And those workers on the front lines experienced the brunt of it. So there's some sort of commonality there that I think is not being exploited at all.
Yeah, and I do think that more and more consumers are waking up to wanting to eat healthier. I mean, I think that it's a really slow change, and I had hoped we were going to see it, 15, 20 years ago. I really thought we were going to see it then, but I think I think there is a huge chunk, and it's the younger people who are going to have the buying power. And whether that outweighs, you're going to have so many people on public assistance, though, who are going to be getting government food. I don't know if that raises the bar, like the government will just have massive purchasing power and they're going to just keep feeding people crap. I'm not sure. But I mean, I do see, at least with, my son's generation and his friends, they are really conservative, and they seem to care a little bit, much more about food than I did at that age, running through McDonald's and crap. So it'll be interesting to see. But it might just be the spin-off of tribalism as well.
Yeah, it might be. I think that's going to play a bigger factor than I care to admit. But I don't know. I do. That was also one of the, I guess, bright sides of the COVID, if you could call it that, is I looked around, I'm like, holy shit, we are not a healthy people. Like, not even close to healthy. And then when you get this virus that affects the old, the sick, and the fat, well, most of Americans have two out of the three, old, sick, or fat. And yeah, that's why it was a real bad situation. I mean, I don't know. I think that the corporate lobby still has their firm, finger, or they've got a firm grasp on policy. I mean, it was a mix between a bunch of different big ag groups that got the food pyramid pushed through, where they said you need to eat 11 to 13 servings of grain every day. Yeah, just like eat more bread. Just keep
lot of bread.
eating that bread. And yeah, and then you know that for decades they claimed that red meat was you know, causes heart attacks and whatnot, and it turns out that was not true at all. And yeah, and then there's you get like the Disneyfication of animals throughout. Like everybody views, you know, the bear as a nice creature. The buffalo is so majestic until he fucking gores your ass when you try to get a picture of him. And it's like, animals are assholes. Regular people don't realize is animals are assholes. They tip outside of your dog. They don't give a shit about you. Your horse gives a shit about you until you stop feeding it, and then they don't care. Yeah, but we've got this idea that animals are our friends, and animals are awesome. Don't get me wrong, but they are not your friends. Outside of your dog and a few horses, you're cat. I guess you could say a cat, but I don't trust cats. But really outside of a dog, there is no animal that's your friend, and they're cool to look at, they're cool to interact with, but you got to remember they're still just animals. And yeah, I don't know. It's funny how. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, well, I was just gonna say we had this thing in Vermont, which was, I think, an excuse for the government to be able to go through your trash potentially, but basically they made mandatory composting a thing throughout the state, and part of that was also put out a lot of small like garbage men companies, you know, family run companies, because they had to get then separate trucks for all the, you know, recycling the trash and compost, and anyways, it was a whole thing. And you know, all these leftists wanted it. Well, now they're just overrun with bears in backyards. Like human to bear encounters is up, coyote encounters is up. All these different animals are in people's backyards because they just got compost everywhere, and the wild animals are killing people's pets, and you know, they're rabid biting people, and it's just hilarious because it's like, this is what you wanted.
Yeah. Do you see where I think it was the Norwegians took out that walrus the other day because he was damaging too many high-end ships?
Yeah, I saw that. That was a huge walrus.
It was like 1,100-pound walrus and was kind of famous. She had showed up at several different places and just like lounged around and kind of hammed it up for the humans. And but apparently enough rich people bitched about the damage done to their like luxury. I don't know if they were yachts quite, but they were like really high end boats. And yeah, a bunch of rich Norwegians were like, "Hey, this walrus it's nice, but yeah, it needs to go." And they took it out. It was all over Twitter for a while. I forget what it was Bessie or some shit like that. They named it and everything. And I'm fine with it, really.
I saw a picture of it. It was like reclining in a dinghy.
Yeah. I mean, if that was my boat, I'd have been like, "Yeah, can you please get rid of this thing?" Like, I didn't sign up for that. Like, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool walrus and whatever. But like, meanwhile, I've got like 20 grand worth of damage to my boat. So, yeah, can you just like get rid of that thing? Yeah, it's.
I wonder how they shoot a walrus. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We don't have any walrus here, but we there's a lot of dams throughout eastern Tennessee, and so it's made just tons of waterfront. And right around where we are, it's just, we drove around last night and saw these incredible, you know, many $million estates, and they all had their yachts outside of them. And it looked pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd want to have a multi-million-dollar estate and be on top of the next door neighbor. I think if I had many millions, I would just buy as much land as possible and just have a little shack in the middle of it.
Yeah, just pull a little single wide out to the middle, and yeah, it's
living the dream.
You bet. No walruses in Tennessee. That's a shame. What would Tennessee's like hybrid animal warrior be? You know, like the Russians had their attack dolphins. What would Tennessee's version of that be?
I don't know. I've only seen a lot of deer and turkey. I think there's a lot more wildlife in the Smoky Mountains. I think they're trying to reintroduce some bigger game. There's a lot of bear interactions with humans, kind of like they have in, the Western national parks, where people are just so stupid with them. Like they're trying to take a picture and they approach a mother bear and cubs and have them attack them. There's a lot of that.
That's the first thing you should do when you see a sow and some cubs is walk towards them. Mm-hmm. Like that. That's definitely what you should do. Oh,
and try to do it where you're walking in between the cubs. So you're really a threat to them.
Yeah,
that's always
Well, you want to assert dominance, but also show that you're not a threat. So that's why you just put an arm around each of the cubs, and it'll turn out fine. attack bears for the state of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. That's what I would go with. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really been out that much, but our property has a lot of like nut trees, like oak, and there's a lot of fruit. So yeah, we just have a ton of turkeys, which is actually kind of terrifying because they'll be up pretty high in the trees roosting, and then they'll just kamikaze you like a pterodactyl.
So Nevada, it'd be depending on the part of the state. So like if you're in Clark County, you could have like the desert tortoise, or you could have your pick of Elvis and Spider-Man from the Las Vegas Strip. So you could have just an army of attack Elvises on the southern Nevada border, and then up in the north, you could just have it'd be a seasonal army, but of zombies from Burning Man. You could turn them into some sort of attack force on the northern end. And then once you get out like in the eastern parts, like northeast kind of Elko County, they run some pretty wild cows up there at times. So you could have some attack cows, but or it'd be like elk. There's some big elk in northeast Nevada. So and down by Utah, so it'd be like attack elk, I think would be Nevada's state attack animal.
Yeah, I got attacked by some ants the other day doing firewood. That wasn't very spectacular, but it did hurt like hell.
Oh, well, isn't like
there's a lot of snakes.
Oh yeah, the South's got a bunch of shit that can kill you, but I think the true like defense force of the South would be the mosquitoes, wouldn't it? Like, because they don't do a ton of damage, but they just wear on you.
Well, that's what I thought, but I guess where we were in New England, we had way more mosquitoes and much more black flies. I mean, you'll occasionally see a skeeter, but like the one thing is here though is there are some different types of mosquitoes that I've never seen before, and they're a little intimidating. I got bit by one when we first arrived, and because I had never had that kind of bite before, it swole up so big. I mean, it was painful. But yeah, they do have a lot of West Nile and that kind of stuff down here. And there are snakes, like we can have rattlesnakes and some different scary ones, but so far we've only had, non-venomous ones we've seen. Mark had a giant, 5-6 foot long rat snake fall out of a tree on his face while he was cutting it down.
Did he scream?
We do have it on video though. Yeah, he screamed. He screamed like a little girl.
I can imagine.
He is. He's a tough guy, and the strong, stoic type. He can take a lot of shit, but snakes is his. That's what, if they ever need to torture him at Guantanamo, just put him in a room with a snake. He'll tell you anything.
That's funny. I had a similar experience. We were poisoning prairie dogs when I was in college, and it was a real windy day, and so I couldn't hear much. And so how we'd toss these pellets in a prairie dog hole, and then you'd mark it with a piece of newspaper, and then the rest of the crew would come back in and fill it up and tamp it down. And so I was out putting out poison, and I tossed these pellets in the hole, and I reached to grab a piece of newspaper, and I saw something just shoot by my hand, and it was about a 4-foot rattlesnake that I didn't hear, and that sucker just missed my hand, and I screamed like a little bitch and sprinted back to the pickup. I dropped my bag there, and I sprinted back to the pickup and got a shovel, and I chopped that sucker into about 900 pieces. And he was a big one. It was I don't know. He was probably, I think, 13 buttons on his rattle. He was in pretty good size. But yeah, I've never screamed harder in my life, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel bad. I saw just a little one yesterday, or a couple days ago, I guess it was, and it was just a non-venomous snake. But I saw it, and I picked up a piece of wood and just smushed it. I mean, I don't know. It's just a natural reaction to be really cautious with those.
Yeah,
I don't know, and it's really hard to identify them in the heat of the moment.
There's been many kids here in the Western U.S. that have had their ass chewed by their parents for killing a bull snake, because the bull snake will keep away the mice, and but they also look almost identical to a prairie rattler. So, yeah, I remember I killed a bull snake one time, thinking it was because it sounded almost exactly like a rattler, and I couldn't see all of it. I just see his head, and killed him. And yeah, my dad ripped my ass because it was a bull snake. But what are you gonna do? I don't know. I used to not.
It's better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, snakes usually don't typically bother me, but that one where I was that close, I screamed harder than because I got bit one time on my boot, and it didn't go through. It just I had some good work boots on, and then that, but you could see the venom running down the side of the leather. And that one was like, it was kind of spooky, but I had heard it, and so, but I couldn't see where it was, and then I was like, it was more relief, so I didn't really scream on that one. But when I just saw this thing fly by my hand, and it was a 4-foot rattlesnake, and I didn't hear it or anything, and yeah, I screamed.
Yeah, we see a lot of different spiders and snakes and stuff, just because since we're doing so much with logs, we cut them down and make a pile, and Mark separates them all by hardwood, softwood, and what kind of saw log it is. But if you're not milling that stuff up quickly, it becomes a good habitat for those creepy crawlies.
Oh yeah, they're especially this time of year, as they're looking for any sort of shade. And yeah, our the boneyards of any ranch, feedlot, whatever, where it's equipment, anything laying out, you just pipe. Yeah, you just gotta like poke a stick ahead of you when you're going through that stuff, because they're guaranteed there's gonna be some snakes. Nasty bastards.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, anyway, so how you once you get your driveway put in, and then you can start putting in electric and everything, and then get to building, huh?
Hopefully. Yeah, the strange thing is, I don't know if it's because of COVID or just worker shortage or whatever it is, but you can't get electric until your building is done here.
What?
So we're actually going to be building. Yeah, we have to be building the house. Unfortunately, just using generators and battery powered tools. So that's kind of shit. But yeah, so we've been trying hard to line up everything so that once we get going, we're not waiting on some subcontractor. We'll be doing most of it ourselves, but like you have to have someone come in who's licensed to do the septic, and we need the well guy. We're going to have a roofer come help us, and so we've been, because we don't know a lot of these subcontractors, we're having to interview them and to get a hold of people, and everybody's really booked out. So, but so far, we've made some good connections, and that's helpful because if we meet some people that are good at their trade, we're doing construction stuff. We're going to be building spec houses. We'll be using them regularly. So yeah, it's just learning a totally new place and way of doing things. And it's funny because some stuff is a lot cheaper than back home in Vermont, and other things, are about the same.
Yeah. What's fuel prices like over there?
They've been going up steadily the past week or two. So diesel seems like it's just under $5 now. $4.88, something like that right now. It's going back up. It kind of went down a little bit when they were trying to lower it, superficially. But yeah, it's going back up.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was. It was five, almost $6 here, and it dipped below 5 for a little bit, but it's still, I think, it's right up around 5. I mean, it still sucks.
Yeah, and we just use so much of it, between tractors and trucks and sawmill and just everything.
Oh yeah,
we do really rely on it a lot. We go through it, but yeah, it'll be good once we can start building, and then we'll make sure we have good guest rooms. So you guys come visit someday.
Heck yeah.
See what our snakes and spiders are like, and yeah.
You should get a hold of Thomas Massey and go check out his spread in Kentucky where he's all off the grid using Tesla equipment.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, he's that guy's interesting. He's he's an MIT nerd engineer, and he's just crazy smart. Like one of those ones, like almost alarmingly smart. You're just like, people shouldn't be that smart, He's like one of those types.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, what else you got going on? Anything else new? Just or just plugging away, huh?
Yeah, just plugging away. I've been trying to do my best when I can to take pictures of stuff to show, for family and friends who aren't here. But yeah, we're building another portable chicken tractor, and we built we've been building a few things as we go, so hopefully we'll be able to start getting some animals this fall, and getting some land ready for gardens and that kind of thing. I don't know how it'll work here because the soil is so different. I'm not used to that at all, but yeah, hopefully we'll have some more stuff to share with folks soon. But I try to share stuff every day if I can on Instagram, and I'm not as good on TikTok. I'm too old for that shit. Once you get over 40, it's harder to do those kind of things. But I do try to keep our Instagram up to date.
Yeah, I gave up on TikTok. That's not my medium. I'm more of a meme guy. So yeah. Anyway, well, where do they find you at? Meadowdale Farm still?
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, perfect. Well, it's been good visiting with you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and move your ass.
Yeah,
We're burning daylight.
You rise up in the morning beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Just together, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right.